everyone, welcome back to the Tune Project. Today I'll be walking you through step-by-step how to play the tune Disconnect. Now this is a modern fiddle tune by fiddle player Jeremy Kittel, and it is one of my favorite tunes and I'm excited to share it with you today. So in the first part of the video, we'll be doing a tutorial where I'll be teaching you step by step how to play the tune Disconnect, and then in the second half of the video, we'll be doing a play along where I'll play it at a slower, medium, and faster tempo for you to practice with. Let's get into the tutorial. So you might have noticed in the beginning of the video where I played the tune that I included several grace notes and flicks and turns and things like that, and I will actually be including many of those features in my tutorial of this tune. So if you are comfortable playing those types of things and are familiar with what those are, those different little types of ornamentation, then just keep watching. So we start over here on the D string on our first finger E. And we end with that little walk up on the A string all the way to D. So the first turn that I played was between those just few notes, so E, F, and D, okay? And then the flick that I played was from B to C. Okay, so we end with that C, which is a little bit longer, a little more sustained, and we lead into that with our first finger B, okay? So all of that together again sounds like this. Okay, and if you have trouble along the way with kind of identifying the rhythm and how to play this, don't worry. In the second half of the video where I share the play along, you'll be able to hear everything in context and the rhythm might make a little bit more sense at that point. And now we head over to open D for this next little phrase. So that one is actually a little bit simpler. We just have one flick or grace note, whatever you want to call it, from open A to B. And for this third phrase, we go back to the beginning and just play the opening phrase one more time. So you should be familiar with all of these notes. And if not, this will just give you a chance to refresh that opening line. Okay, so in this next phrase, we go back and forth between the D string and the A string. Okay, so starting on D. Okay, and then I went ahead and slurred those last two notes, the G to the F sharp. But all of that besides is just pretty straightforward. Now we go back and play that A section one more time. It's repeated, but the ending is a little bit different. So I'm gonna go ahead and just play through what we already know from the A section, and then I'll walk you through the different ending. Okay, so all of that is the same, and I played just a little bit of the first ending because we have the same notes in this ending to begin with, but then we do a walk up to E, our fourth finger. Okay, so all together, the ending would sound like this, the second ending. Okay, and that kind of leads us smoothly into the B section. Okay, so coming off of that transition, and this transition is a little bit different from some of the other fiddle tunes that you might be more familiar with, where we have a clear ending of one section and a clear beginning of another section. In this case, the two sections kind of cross over into each other. So the beginning of the B section could be considered to start here. Okay, so since we already talked about going up to that E, that fourth finger, I'll just have you start on the G, which is the first new note that we're looking at in the B section. I hope that's not too confusing. Pretty simple. We're just adding on to as one complete phrase. And then we go back down to open A. Okay, so same pattern, we're just coming down a step. And also you might have noticed that I added a little flick in there. Okay, so from the G to the F sharp, and you're welcome to add that in as well if you like the way that it sounds. Next, we go back to our opening phrase of the B section. Okay, so same notes there, and then this next section, I'm actually gonna just break it up a little bit because it's more of an extended phrase and all of the parts kind of fit together, but I'm just gonna show you one part at a time to make it a little shorter. Okay, so essentially we just have a scale coming down from the A string to the D string, and then next, starting on E, and then leading back into the beginning of the B section with that ending transition. So it's kind of like what we saw in the beginning of the B section, which was also the end of the A section. We have that same thing happening here at the end of the B section, where it's just circling back to the beginning, okay? And then we just play the B section once more, and then I'll show you the slightly different ending that we have the second time around. And then the ending begins the same way as it did the first time. So we have these same set of notes. Okay, and that's where it gets a little bit different. So if you were to end this tune, rather than going back to the beginning and playing it again, if you were to end it, then we would play it like this. And that low note was a B on the G string, and then we end the same way that we started on a first finger E. All right, so that is all of Disconnect. That is the whole tune. I hope all of those little transitions made sense. If not, be sure to stay tuned for this next portion of the video where I will clarify by just playing everything together slowly and then at a medium tempo and then at a faster tempo so you can hear how the tune would sound played all together. But before we get into that, let's just talk about a couple of things that you might want to remember as you're practicing this tune. The first thing would just be to make sure that you're familiar with grace notes, flicks, and turns. Okay, so when I say grace note, flick, turn, I'm just talking about all of those little ornamentation things, those little stylistic elements that I added in throughout the tune. So make sure that you're comfortable with just adding those in, not as an additional rhythm piece or as an additional note value, but just tacked onto the phrase that already exists, just to add a little bit of style to it. The next thing to keep in mind with this one is slurs. Think about where you might want to place slurs. You can place them in the same spots that I did when I was playing this tune, or if you find a place that's more comfortable to add in some slurs, then feel free to do that. If you're comfortable playing fiddle tunes and you've been doing this for a while and you know several tunes, then you probably have a pretty good idea of where to add slurs and just natural places that would make sense for this tune. If not, then feel free to just play with separate bows, or you could also do a little bit of experimenting and see if there are certain places that adding in a slur or two would make it easier. And then finally, we talked a lot about the transition, especially from the end of the A section going into the B section, and then the end of the B section going back to the beginning of the B section. Make sure you're comfortable with that. When you play the whole tune all at once, those sections go pretty seamlessly into one another. So as long as you're able to just learn those notes, then I think it'll make sense once you play it all together if you found it confusing in any way. And now let's play Disconnect together at a slow, medium, and fast tempo. Well, thank you guys so much for sticking around and learning disconnect. I will see you in my next video. Happy practicing.